Yes,
We're
that's
live.
right. Okay, okay. Yeah, everyone calm down. We're here. The Survivor Know-It-Alls. Rob Sesternino is hobnobbing it up on the red carpet at the Survivor finale, but we have his stand-in, his finale stand-in now, I think for the second or third season running, Sophie Clarke here to drop some knowledge on us about what it actually takes to win the game without making fire and with making fire. Sophie, I'm so thrilled to have you here. It's becoming a tradition.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so hyped up right now. I'm not gonna be able to sleep. That was an awesome finale.
Yeah, what an incredible, like, packed finale. So much happened there. So much contentious stuff. Big win. Let's not like drop the lead headline here. Ben Driebergen wins the.
I have no idea what his last name is. Ben
wins the Survivor. Joins an elite group of just 34 people who have ever won the show. You're
Steven, I'm not giving away any of our secrets. If I learned anything from this season, stop fishing.
Yeah. That's right. So what I think the big tune in. I think Rob at the start of every show reminds you that he'll have all of his podcast things happening for the rest of the week. I'm sure he will have Ben, an interview with Ben, as well as all the other losing finalists. Devin, the deserving winner of the season, and Chrissie, and another deserving winner of the season, and Ryan and Dr. Mike too.
Unless we really offend anyone tonight, in which case we might not get anyone.
That's right. Anyway, really excited to talk about it here with you tonight. I have no idea who Rob has coming up on the recap show, or if he even has a recap show. But he's not here, so this is his loss. So Sophie, tell me, what did you think, Ben as the winner?
So I weirdly found myself this whole episode rooting against Ben. And I think that's just because I was rooting for the underdog, because Ben had somehow transformed from such an underdog into the overdog. It seemed like so inevitable that what could stop this moving train. So I strangely started to kind of root for Devin, who I've always really liked, but even Chrissie. And it wasn't until Ben finally kind of took the win that I realized I was never really against Ben. I was just rooting for the excitement of it all, and for just yet another twist to happen.
Now was Ben the underdog? But Ben was the underdog, right? Ben, even from his position in the game, Ben was the guy who the entire group was targeting. Did you feel do you mean he was kind of just from an editing perspective? You mean like he seemed to be predestined?
I guess getting the idols kind of one after another. I think I started to root against, I think, the idol play, and I wanted somebody to kind of stop that train that was moving. And I think it wasn't until Ben actually captured victory that I realized that, of course, Ben is a great winner. I don't know why I was rooting for Chrissie or Devin or anybody. This was, I think, almost the editors were so pushing it into our face to root for Ben that my natural inclination was to kind of step back and try to root for somebody else. But I mean, come on, it was an amazing episode.
Well, no, I agree with you. And, I think that was part of what I didn't love about Ben, is that he really did feel for so much of the season like this predestined winner. And even over the past couple of episodes where there was this big question of how on earth is Ben going to make it to the end, and how's he going to win, I still felt like he's got to win. Like his whole story, the whole story of the season was around him. We heard so much about his personal life, about his his love of his wife, about his military service, and this is all fascinating stuff, but you really weren't hearing those same things about Devin or even Chrissie and Ryan. To a certain degree you did about Chrissie, but go ahead.
I was really glad that in the final, after he won, they showed that recap from the beginning of what Ben had done, because I found myself after he won feeling a little bit like, okay, that was incredible. 3 idols in a row, making fire. I don't know if anybody's had such an amazing finish, but that recap really reminded me that Ben had a good game, from A to Z. He had a ton. He had a social game. Even if people felt like he was maybe not the nicest person, he relied on alliances for a huge part of the game. It was really only until the end that he was relying on these idols, and it was only because he had to. So that was kind of a nice way to step back and remind myself that Ben, from beginning to end, I think he played a very, very strong game.
Yeah, I was kind of annoyed because I wrote my whole finale blog about how hey, actually Ben had a kind of cool social game, and then I was like, oh, come on, guys, stole my thunder. But it is true that Ben had a really strong game. I mean, at the merge, he was King Arthur, right? And the reason they were calling him King Arthur was because he was the dominant social player. He was leading the biggest alliance. Then at the final 8 or 9 at the JP blind side, you know, when Lauren formed that core 4 of people with Ben, Lauren, Devin, and Ashley, Ben was the guy who they chose to be the spy, the mole. So he was playing this really subtle social role and playing it incredibly well. And it was only when everybody else was out to get him that Ben kind of had to go on this immunity run. So it didn't seem like a Mike Holloway situation where maybe Mike kind of alienated his alliance. It seemed like there just really was no other option for Ben once really everybody was out to get him. Now, Ben has an incredible record. Ben is one of only 4 contestants to find 3 idols in the game. Is the only contestant ever in the history of the show, I believe, to play all of his idols, all 3 idols, correctly, to game-changing impact. So he really, not only did he have an incredible streak of idols this season, but he set a record for his idol play.
He did. Although I don't want to throw shade on a fellow winner too soon, but I will do that.
That's why you're here, Sophie.
I would say, like, how hard was it to get those right? Right. For instance, I give more credit to Devin for, if we're giving credit to somebody for reading the room right and playing their cards at the right moment, I wouldn't give that to Ben in this episode. I would give it to Devin. Ben's back against the wall. Like, obviously he's playing those 3 idols in a row. I think 1, 2, 3, none of them were like brilliant moves necessarily by Ben. Maybe the first one, I don't remember. Devin's move, however, this game to me, like, highlights that thing that I think people try to highlight when they're saying that somebody plays an idol really well, which is reading the room correctly, taking the chance of there's going to be a risk of making this move, but like, I think this is the right time and I'm going to go big. And so I think Devin for me gets the credit and not Ben for that.
Well, for my, I want to stick to Ben a little bit because I do want to talk about Devin at length a little bit. But I mean, I think Devin was
another winner. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Oh my god. I really think Devin was the player of the season. I think Devin was the best player of the season, and I think had Devin won, as it looked like he might, he would be one of the best winners ever. Not that we should be ranking winners. I
agree, but back to Ben. Credit I will give to Ben on the idols is less about playing them, because I think that was not what made him unique and not what made him a standout. What made him a standout was the way he found those idols.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like the amount of effort, waking up in the morning, like. And I think I wrote down, but Chrissie's quote there about like, well, what are we supposed to do? He's getting up in the morning and like, we can't follow him all the time. I'm like, well, that's why you lose. There you go.
Yeah, totally. And the jury seemed to feel the same way. I was more amazed by the fact that night when they came back from tribal council, coming back from tribal, you're exhausted. You've just had like a really intense emotional experience. Ben just played an idol. You're really tired afterwards. The fact that Ben had the wherewithal to immediately go looking for an idol, and then we see him reemerging from the forest after. I mean, you can't. There's absolutely no light, right? It's completely dark. He's basically foraging around in the total dark in the wilderness in Fiji, hoping to stumble upon a little symbol. I mean, it really, really, really was an incredible testament to how hard he played.
I'm probably just naming the 2 most recent male winners that I remember, but he does, in my mind, remind me of like a mesh between a Jeremy and a Tony, like the intensity of a Tony, but with the attitude of this is work and like this is not play. I'm out there to get a job done.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the Mike Holloway comparison? Because that's sort of maybe the most direct. This is a guy who really had to win out towards the end. Yeah,
I get it with the Mike Holloway. I don't remember much. I have a terrible memory. I don't remember much about Mike Holloway. Jeremy and Tony stick much more in my mind. I also remember Mike Holloway alienating people much more than I think than Ben did.
Yeah. Although, towards the end there, everybody was really out to get Ben. Let's talk about it, because I really think that this is what everyone wants to hear about, which is this fire-making competition at the Final Four, an incredibly contentious twist that, according to Jeff, is at least definitely in next season and maybe even a permanent format change. What did you think, Sophie? What did you think of this?
I thought it was super exciting, first of all. I don't think anybody can deny that. I love the idea of this being in the show from here on out. I am less thrilled about this being in the show without people knowing that it's coming.
Right.
To me, this is like, why not change the game? I mean, right, Survivor is a game that's created by humans. The rules are absurd. And this is just, slightly changing the rules hereforth to make it more exciting and probably reward somebody who is like a slightly better player or has some kind of skill that we're not rewarding in the past. I'm fine with that. I'm less fine with it being a twist because I feel like to me, what makes Survivor so great is giving people constraints and giving people a world through which to navigate and see who can navigate that world the best. And I think when you're not giving players like full information about what is the world that they're navigating, you're no longer like really even judging the players. You're putting them into like a random box and shaking them up and seeing what comes out. So like, I would love if this was in the docket and people knew this was coming and they were having to kind of plan around this and think about, oh my God, who's going to be able to make fire at the end? How does that affect who I should vote out? This means that we're even more concerned about Ben because we don't just have to beat him, but we have to make sure he can't make fire. All of those considerations. And to me, that's much more interesting than just every so often kind of throwing in a random thing and seeing what happens.
But I mean, for something to be part of the game, first it has to like happen, it has to happen once for the first time. And that's every twist.
Right? They could have told them in the beginning of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like that the Survivor is definitely erring on the side these days of surprising the players and keeping the players on their toes. And I think it probably makes better television, because, oh my gosh, look at this shocking surprise taking everyone, or shocking twist taking everyone by surprise, as opposed to, look at this thing that we all knew about and we've made plans accordingly. I think the latter is more interesting from a pure gameplay perspective. Maybe the former is more interesting from a television perspective. Here's what I didn't love about the twist, and this is still rankling me. When I first is that this idea that Survivor is at its core a game of social dynamics where every elimination is to some degree settled by a vote. Now, there are things like hidden immunity idols that help you, work against that vote. There are things like extra votes that tweak that vote. When there's a tie vote, then things happen because of that. But, other than Edevac or people who have quit the game, I don't think any other contestant has ever been eliminated without a vote. Now, some people are telling me that Wanda and Jonathan Libby in Palau were eliminated without votes. Now, whether they were actually officially part of the game or not, or, they were eliminated by a pick'em. I mean, but the fact that we have to go back to that to
Rupert's wife.
No, she was voted out. She was voted out, and then Rupert switched with her. She was voted out in that first day. So the twists and turns and the advantages, as long as you keep that core dynamic intact. And like, this really seems to work against that. Now, what you don't have that problem.
Well, I thought about that when I was watching the show. However, it's not. So I think I'd heard that this kind of twist was coming. It was written about or something before the show. Right. And I thought it was going to be, my understanding of it was that it was going to be a challenge, and the loser of the challenge, like in the final four, was just automatically going to be sent home. And in my mind, that was a problem because of exactly what you're saying. Like, that undermines the whole point of this being a social game and being able to navigate around any kind of physical blocks that people put in your way, even if you're not a physical player. But this, I think you could argue that if people knew that this was happening in the future, right? Chrissie did get to choose somebody to stay, right? It wasn't that the three of them had to make fire and the top two got to go on. There was still this small element of a vote, of Chrissie having a vote and getting to, choose a player. And so you could imagine, I mean, it's a stretch, but you could say that a lot of it is, okay, knowing that if you're not the strongest player, thinking about who is the person who might be the person who gets to choose the automatic person they're sitting next to. So, I mean, I think that it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be as bad that you're saying.
Argument against it. Yeah, I'm for it. And I think the final four vote, if any vote, is really the one to shake up. I just tweeted this, but the final four vote is one of the most uninteresting votes in the game because it's either this down the line vote for a dominant player, as it has often been, or it's a tie, which leads to fire making anyway. So if it is that down the line vote for the dominant player, like, how much more interesting to give that person another shot? If it's a tie anyway, why not just like cut to the chase and get to the fire making? I'm still like, to me, it still feels like I get it. Like, you're making a very compelling case on its behalf.
Right, like Ryan got to the end because Ryan had a relationship with Chrissie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just a Devin stan. Maybe I'm just salty over losing Devin.
I'm salty over losing Devin. Yeah. He was incredible. He really was a gem.
So you're okay with this, and especially moving forward, you're okay with this being part of the show. I just, I guess the weird thing is like that final, maybe it's just like all of us who have been watching the show for so long, we have such an established idea of what it should be. And then this is so different than that. In as much as every tribal council is, everyone goes to the voting booth and they make their votes, and then at the final, there's no immunity more important than the final 3 immunity. And here that's not true, because you lose the final 3 immunity, you've got another shot, but maybe now the fire making thing is really the most important thing.
I just feel like I'm an old school lover as well, and I'm a lover of like the fewer twists and turns and kind of changes in the game that players can't expect, the better. Like, I'm not a fan of 20 immunity idols, but it does feel like, the game evolves all the time, right? There used to not be Exile Island, and now it's kind of when players go away, it's seen as normal. There used to not be
there's no Exile.
Okay, well, there used to not be hidden immunity idols, and there are all these elements of the game that I for one, I'm not sure I'm totally thrilled with how this was employed. I think it takes a little bit away from Ben's win, because he would not be there without this win. But I'm definitely for production trying these things and continue to employ them in the future with people knowing that that's a possibility. And I think that because this was not a firm, the person who loses is out, there was this possibility to be chosen. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this going forward.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, it doesn't really take away from. I mean, if that's your argument, like it's not like Ben would have been there, regardless. Like, they tried to get him out. It wasn't like he was only there because they thought they could vote him out of the final 4. Like, they kept trying to vote him out, and he so it's Ben would have been.
No, but without this fire challenge, he wouldn't have won the game.
Right, but if you're saying the fire, it's not. You're saying the problem is that the players didn't have an opportunity to plan against the fire challenge.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't have mattered. Like, they couldn't have planned against Ben being at the fire challenge. They tried to get rid of Ben.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we're different things.
Yeah. So let's talk about
the more controversial opinion on that one. Like, where's Twitter going?
Very anti. Like, the things that I've seen are very, very opposed. In fact, a lot of people feel like, I do think there's that element of the fact that Ben was this big story, and then it helps him out. I think there's a feeling of people thinking it's maybe it's production interference. I don't think that's the case. I don't think production is doing a big change like this at the last minute, as a way to like help out one contestant. Like, to me, like, I was going back and forth about this with Dalton, and we were saying that it's less about this is helping Ben the person than it is probably to help contestants like Ben. It's to help those contestants who would be eliminated in 4th place, but we want to see them have another shot. But it's not like to help Ben specifically. It's to help Ben. It's to help David Wright. It's to help Kelly
Ozzy.
Wentworth.
Like, I should be the last person. To help Ozzy.
It would have screwed you over. You would have lost.
Oh no, I know.
So is there an asterisk by your name now because you got to benefit from like an old school,
from the old school rules? No, I had total flashbacks to my season and watching not the fire challenge, but the challenge before that, watching that and knowing that Ben knows he has to win, and Chrissie and the other people knowing they have to win to have a chance at winning, and the emotions after the challenge of Ben crying, huge flashbacks to Ozzy crying.
Right. Sure. How
gratifying! I wonder maybe if you lose
it. Yeah.
Well, you're also right. There's going to be pros and cons. Like, production might lose a little bit of that excitement of that Final 4 challenge and the gravity of it because everybody kind of knows that they have a shot. It's not the end of the game.
Right. Well, but like how but yes. Although to be the counter argument, like those moments are super moving, and I think I remember too. I remember in Cambodia watching it, seeing Kelly Wentworth and Jeremy and their emotional moments. I guess to me, like, I don't mind when players come up short. Obviously, I want to see my favorites win, but like it's so much more emotional when someone tries their hardest and they're robbed just at that last moment. And that to me is as powerful as seeing like my favorite contestant win the game. When in fact I prefer when they come up short. It makes me like them more, because the winners did better than I did.
Do you feel a little bit like I feel a little bit like this season ended wrong? Like, Ben definitely seems like he deserved to win. He was the best player at the end. He was incredible. But it did seem like this should have been a season where Ben, the hero Marine who tried his hardest but just came up quite a little bit short. Like that seems like how the season should have ended.
Much more like, definitely. Well, there's something like almost too neat about Ben win. And like, look, we can't take away from Ben's win by saying it was like too good. He was like too perfect in every way.
Oh
He
my
was like,
God.
yeah, because he really was. I mean, he really, and even right from the jump. So let's talk a little bit about the jury because again,
Ooh,
they
yeah.
had the jury phase, and talking about production format twists. This is one that is just spectacularly working.
Yeah. I agree. Spectacularly working. It's awesome. I thought what was great about it was that I think the last time they did this, it really encouraged the jurors to be kind of talk back and forth between each other and debate. But this time I thought it worked even better in that it got the three finalists really kind of debating each other.
Yeah.
And it almost cut the jury out of it at points in a way that really, I thought, exposed. I thought watching this jury, I had a really good sense of what they did well in the jury and what they didn't do well in the jury, and kind of exposed them as humans and as what they took out of the game in a way that made it very clear who was going to win. Like, I thought that Ben came out of that so unscathed and so humble compared to the other two. And there was so much it was like rats fighting.
Yeah. You mean between Chrissie and Ryan?
Yeah. And I think that the format enabled that to happen. Whereas usually, right, it would be very kind of like sit up straight and I'm going to give my little speech. And because of this format, it let them get to their like lowest.
I think that's a good observation. I also think it was because Chrissie was playing very aggressive defense, from a jury management perspective, where as soon as someone would say something, like she would chime in with her thing or she would shoot down their thing. When people were criticizing Ryan for his lack of work, like she jumped right in there and was criticizing him too. When Ben was like, the thing about how soldiers are heroes, Chrissie's like, well, moms are the real heroes. Yeah. But I think that was really smart. I mean, obviously it didn't get her the win, but from my perspective, it was really smart because so often the jury is looking for that story of who can I feel really good about voting for. And I'm sure Chrissie, when she heard Ben giving that speech, was like, oh my God, this is his Jeremy moment. This is his Adam Klein moment. This is the moment that we all remember. And I can't get over this. So she kind of like steals it right back and is like, actually, I'm part of this as well,
I don't know. I thought actually that Chrissie did not do a good job with the jury at all.
Oh,
and
really?
maybe she was doing that because that was her only shot. What I thought that she did wrong was, a couple things. One is that she was almost trying to make the jury tell her how wonderful she was. Yeah. And I feel like you don't want a good strategy with a jury is not to try to convince them that like, aren't I the greatest human that's ever existed? And like, I know that like JT did that with you and that worked, but I feel like with the jury, you want them to come out of it feeling like I'm better than all three of those finalists. Like I should have been there if not for this luck, but this person is like good enough that I'm going to I feel good about voting for them. And I feel like Chrissie wanted all of them to tell her like, look how great I am. Like I won 4 challenges. Isn't it amazing? It's so wonderful. And like, I thought she was looking for too much affirmation from the jury, where if I was in the jury, I think that would be a really hard thing to give and a hard thing for it to be hearing somebody basically asking me for.
Well, but what do you mean? Because I mean, she's talking about her accomplishments, right? She's saying like, "Hey guys, I won four immunities. There's only 4 women in all of the women who have been on the show to have done that." I mean, how? But
then she added like and isn't it great? Like, aren't I great? It was something about she had the right story. I do think that Chrissie, she's shown this whole season to not be the most self-aware person. Think back to all the times that she's like whispering really loudly in front of people, right? I don't think Chrissie's somebody, at least the read I get from watching, whatever it is, an hour of Chrissie over the last 6 months, is that she's not somebody who's really self-aware of reading a room. And I felt like that really hurt her in the jury.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like she was trying to make her win feel, like I said, feel good for, and and she had that big speech at the end about how she's a winner who they could all be proud of and who could represent all of them, and she's a hero, a healer, and a hustler. And I think maybe she wanted to pitch her win as a win for everybody in a way that would kind of not resonate with a jury. Who was the second Chrissie vote? Who do we think? So Chrissie got 2 votes, Ryan got 1 vote. One of Chrissie's votes was Ashley. Who do we think the second was?
And Devin was Ryan.
Yeah, Devin voted for Ryan.
And it was not Lauren, correct?
Lauren voted for Ben. It's possible that it was Desi.
I don't think so.
Cole. It could have been Cole. Cole might have been salty about Ben, not particularly respected Ryan. And he said how much he respected Chrissie and her challenge. performance. Anyway, we'll have to find out.
What about Dr. Mike? I think Dr. Mike was a Ben.
Yeah. Well,
what about JT? Or what's his name?
JP. That's possible. I feel like JP is probably a Ben guy. I'm sure we'll find out where all the votes came from. Yeah. I mean,
what do you think of Ryan's final performance? Because I thought it was atrocious.
Yeah, it was bad. I feel like I can speak to this. I think Ryan went in there. No, seriously, I think Ryan went in there knowing that he basically. What are you eating? Are you having dinner?
I'm having chocolate cake.
Oh my! Well, you can't. You can't argue with chocolate cake. So I
Sorry, I really threw you off here. You were going to make the comparisons to Ryan and yourself.
Okay, so I think. Well, I do. I mean, I think Ryan went in there like knowing that he basically had an impossible task ahead of him, which is that on the one hand he's got Chrissie, who's got 4 immunity wins. Maybe he thinks he's got some sort of like social argument to make against Chrissie, but how does he possibly compete against Ben? And so I do think he went in there, and he even had a confessional before Final Tribal. Like, I'm going to try to make the case that I controlled everything. It's a lie, but I'm going to try to make it. And I think that a lot of Ryan's argument, actually, I think Ryan did struggle in a similar way to what I did, where he said, like, listen, I was making all these strategic decisions behind the scenes, and everyone else was like, you were behind the scenes. I didn't see you. I was in the scenes. Like if you were behind the scenes, like then you weren't in the scenes with me. And so like being behind the scenes is not good because people need to see you making moves to a certain degree. And one thing you could say about Ben, one thing you could say about Chrissie, they were very visible.
Yeah. I also think that Ryan, and it's hard to criticize somebody who, like, when you look back, you say they probably had no hope anyway. Yeah. But I thought, again, the tone, just as Chrissie, I thought her tone wasn't right. I thought Ryan's tone was like super aggressive and was like, I'm going to force you to believe me. And like, I'm going to point at you a lot. And then you're going to know that I did things. And I have to believe that, like, taking kind of a calmer, more like, I'm going to tell you some things that you're not going to believe, but like I was actually, I did play a large role, and I know that you don't believe this, but I want to explain to you, and I want to tell you about these times that I was really involved and I did control the game that you don't know about.
This is sort of what you were pitching for, like Hannah on her season. I feel like you kind of came into this podcast and were pitching like the same strategy for her. You're like, here's how Hannah should have structured it. You really want something to do, like,
too aggressive. Right? Like that jury, you heard them with Mike say, like, but Ryan, what did you learn? Right? You have to remember the jury goes to Ponderosa and they're all kind of like a little bit out of the game, and they're all nostalgic about home, and they want like a story more than, I think they said it, like, stop telling us the small little details. Like, we want to hear the big picture. And Ryan was all about the little details and all about, like, I want to, there's a lot of finger pointing.
At the final one, I did, or the final 15, I did this thing with this person and this. I agree. It's like hard to
like frame it for them. And
as soon as it gets into the he said, she said, the jurors absolutely tune out. They really want the big picture. My perspective is that the jurors come in knowing who they're going to vote for, and like maybe there's a little bit of that you can do to change their minds. Maybe one or two change their minds. What did you think about Devin voting for Ryan? I saw a lot of people were very critical. I was tweeting about how great Devin is, and then some people were like, I thought he was great too until he voted for Ryan. What did you think of that?
I love it as a Survivor fan because I want Survivor to be as much a story about people and not a like group think of like who played the best game. And to me, the Devin vote is because Devin had a relationship with Ryan from the beginning, and Devin saw a lot of what Ryan did in the way that other people didn't. And Devin probably respected Ryan because he said it at the beginning, I didn't think you were going to be able to make it, and you did. And I think that people should be allowed to vote on their own personal experience of the game. And I think that is the best way to vote. Like, that is, I would prefer that you have to think about the jury as individuals and how each individual interacted with you and with your game, rather than think about them as a body of people who are going to judge your work. And so I like that Devin voted for Ryan.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of framing it and articulating. I think that's really, really smart. Devin also saw things of Ryan's that nobody else, including us, saw. Like, he saw how strategic Ryan was. In some ways, I kind of wonder if like Ryan, this is perhaps, maybe naive of me, but like Ryan kind of like inducted Devin into the game in a way where, Ryan, in those early conversations with Devin, Ryan like talked so much strategy and had so much insight. And I wonder if that was kind of like Devin's sort of entree into this. I maybe I'm not giving Devin enough credit here, because certainly by the end of the game, I think Devin deserves like infinite credit.
I love that theory. I would love to see a spinoff where we just see the two of them.
Yeah,
over again
it's a
throughout
great
the
brand.
game.
And bromance, like you can't believe in the bromance. Yeah.
I have a question about the final
Yeah.
tribal. One of the notes that I took was that I really get tired of people like tit for tat talking about like their resumes. And one of the things I thought was new in this tribal, and or maybe it was an old thing coming back, was they were almost talking about their social game as a resume. And I think Chrissie really started it with the
really
whole
interesting.
it was so weird.
Well,
I can tell you something about 34 ACT or whatever she was screaming.
Well, it was. What I thought was interesting about that was the players kind of like, because especially first time, the last time we saw this format, it was with returning players. For first time players, the social element of the game is so much more important. Like we bonded together as this community. This was an experience we all went on together. And it was really interesting to me to watch the jury kind of try to figure out how much those social bonds really mattered. You had some people saying, the social, tell me about why, how you really connected with us. Tell me about how much you know about us. And then you had someone like Cole who was saying, that doesn't matter. What only matters, tell me how you used those social bonds to further your game. So I think that gets back to a really fundamental question in the game itself. So I really thought it was interesting to see just even the jury debating it as well as the contestants debating it.
Yeah. And it was just weird because I don't think we've ever seen it debated at such a meta level.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is what's so great about this new jury format is that you do really see the fundamental question of like what is valued by to
have a social game. Yeah,
I would exactly. When
you loved for Wine Survivor and watch like Natalie White and Russell Hance's tribal like in this format, like to see more of the old. Yeah.
Mick Trimming could have been the winner of Survivor Samoa. Really, who knows? He might have been a compelling. He's a very compelling guy. You don't know.
It was weird though, right? Like Ben's whole quote about like, well, I told people stories. And it was so textbook. Ben was like, I told people things about myself. And Chrissie was like, I know everything about everybody. And
I love that. Yeah, my favorite. I love that moment when Joe was like, "Come on, like what do you know about me?" And she's like, "Well, here's what I know about you. I know these specific things about you." It's pretty impressive. But is that impressive, or is that just like great? You've like taken notes.
No, it's not impressive at all, right? I wrote down well, now you said notes, so I'm embarrassed, but I wrote down in my notes as I was watching TV.
Great, you're taking notes.
That like you didn't play a social game if you have to explain your social game.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. It's interesting. So let's talk. And speaking of Chrissie, like let's talk about her a little bit. A lot of people felt that she deserved to win. That she, this mom who still was physically dominant. She won 4 immunity challenges. That is, ties the record. The record is held by Kim Spradlin, who was 29 when she did it. Kelly Wigglesworth, who was 22, and Jenna Maraska, who was 21. Chrissie's 47. She's and played, a really incredible achievement. And she was on, she was a key part of so many crucial alliances. I think a lot of people felt that the jury didn't appropriately value her. What did you think?
I think it was so hard because I think that Ben for so long had been the foregone winner, that I'm not even sure she got the chance to be appropriately evaluated. I got the sense from the jury that they all wanted to say, yes, Chrissie, like, yes, you were great. Yes, you won 4 immunity challenges. Right. Yes, you even did more than that, but like, it's just not going to be enough in this situation.
Right. Like, aren't I inspiring? Aren't I great? Yeah.
Yeah. But I also wonder, like, if she got more credit. I'm very curious to read like interviews with people after the season's over, only because I definitely saw moments in the game that made me feel like if I was on the jury, I might not vote for her for reasons beyond wanting to vote for Ben. Like I definitely think there was an element of her being a little socially unaware with the whispering thing. But there was also like she got a lot of fights with people when they were not on her side. And it seemed like that, to me, it seemed like that graded people. And I would just be curious to know. I don't think we got a great evaluation beyond the fact that people were impressed with her wins, with how people felt like she did in the game, because it wasn't necessary because Ben was so much the obvious winner.
Right.
So I would love to hear the case made by somebody beyond the wins, why her game was great or why her game was not great.
What did you think, before we get to the questions, I want to talk, what did you think of the reunion?
Man, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm having all these controversial opinions. I think I've turned into like a casual viewer. I need to get back on Twitter. I thought the reunion was okay. Like, obviously, yeah, they didn't talk to any people, and that sucks. And like, I also love it when they find out that the second person who got voted out was pregnant. Like, that's always fun. But I kind of liked the format of doing the interviews as they came. I thought that was new this year, of kind of as Mike got voted out, as Devin got voted out, doing the interviews on the fly, because you were so invested in the moment. Whereas sometimes after the winner's chosen, like, I'm less interested in going back to like Devin, who got voted out 2 hours ago, and remembering why. So I liked that format. I was obviously, like, I would have preferred less children, as all of you watching would have. Less children.
Who's arguing for more children?
Nobody.
Like, that's what I want to know. Like, who's the people who's like, we need more kids doing votes?
Yeah.
Who wants that?
I was worried that kid was going to be like a tiebreaker vote, because I was convinced this was going to be a tiebreaker. I mean, it could have been worse, guys. It could have been a lot worse. We dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Well, and you know, less reunion also meant, in this case, a lot more finale. You know, the finale, part of the reason the reunion was so short was that the finale was so long. We got a lot more of an incredibly action-packed finale. Oh, one other thing I want to talk about before we get into the questions was that crazy Final Four immunity challenge. What a cool challenge. And the fact that Ben almost lost because of an upside down U. Honestly, if Ben had lost the game because of an upside down U, I don't think I would have been able to get over it.
That was an awesome challenge. I also think the music in that challenge was awesome, because I think I've gamed the Survivor music, and I'm like, oh, the music's on, like, Ben's gonna win. Oh, the music is on, Chrissie's gonna win. And like, the music even fooled me in that challenge. It was amazing.
I like that the music cues are very self-aware now, that they have the cues there, but they also like use the cues to sort of like fake you out. I really like that.
Did you notice the cues after Ben was like, you guys were all just hurdles in my game, and somebody's like, can you say more and not just call us hurdles? And then it was like and it was like, I'm a Marine.
Oh, when the piano started. Yeah, you know, when the piano starts, you know that something beautiful is about to be said.
No, but that challenge was awesome. I mean, it's like your challenge, right? Of like losing on a ball. I mean, again, this is why I'm saying this game should have ended with Ben losing, right? Like, people are going to forget about the U. The U would only be iconic if Ben lost the game. Like, it's over.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some questions, because before because I don't actually have a computer charger down here. So let's get into some questions before my computer dies. JJ, back up for grabs, wants to know, Rob Cesternino looked primed and ready for another season of Survivor. Let's get him out there. That guy is super fit. I think he's let's throw him into the game.
Where are people seeing Rob Cesternino anyway?
He was at the finale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can I read one?
Yeah, please. We should alternate.
Okay. How does E. Orleans feel about having more?
Say who the question is.
Sorry. Hey, Taylor Martina. He wants to know, how does Eliza feel about having more airtime in this reunion than members of the Final Five? You know, I was not with Eliza tonight, but I know that she was very happy.
I was very excited about it. I was really upset at first. I was like, oh my God, Ghost Island, like twists that were big player screw ups. I was like, great. Once again, I'm going to be humiliated on national TV. Once again, I don't even mind it so much, just them airing this stuff on Survivor. I kind of get a kick out of that. The thing that I hate is like, well, then my like Twitter feed blows up and it's like, oh, Fishbach,
what would be your screw up? Which one would they choose?
The vote steal. Which one? The vote steal. But actually, I love this idea. The Ghost Island was such a cool idea. I'm pleased. Like,
do you understand what they're doing with it?
I think it's like an exile island, but like they've got the past advantages that are, can you use it? Who knows how they enter the game? Yeah, really.
Did you
cool.
like so much teaser of Ghost Island? I mean, it took
I would like to.
Okay.
Well, it's fun to watch all those moments. Eric giving up immunity again, the Jay fake idol thing. Like there was so yeah. No. Yeah. All right. Jordan RR wants to know, instead of voting for the most qualified because she was an abrasive, confident woman, they voted for the man who had it handed to him by the system. Sound familiar? Sophie, what does this mean for America?
I just wish that Chrissie was not up against Ben, because I was rooting for Chrissie for a lot of the episode. I think Chrissie
would have beat Devin.
Man, I wish Jeff. This is why we needed the reunion show. This is the kind of shit Jeff asks.
Yeah, these are the questions we need to know.
Yeah, these are the burning questions. We'll have to ask Rob to ask them tomorrow. But yeah, it's reflect. I mean, of course. Hashtag me too. Who had almost everybody in there who won't get asked the question at the finale?
So say the name of the person asking.
Sorry. Chris Bragg said, who had almost everybody in there who won't get asked the question at the finale pool? That's really funny.
Yeah, I would have definitely guessed that. I guess Devin got some airtime, as you said. There were a few who didn't get any airtime that I would have expected to get airtime. Did Joe get any airtime?
Joe got no airtime. If you could have heard from one person, who would you have wanted to hear from?
I mean, I would have liked more Rimmer just because, love Rimmer. But I mean, she did speak. So in terms of people who didn't speak, I don't know. Allie. I mean, I really liked Allie. Cole. I really like Cole. I like Cole. I know people didn't love Cole. All of them. This was a good cast. All in. All right. Harper Elizabeth wants to know: Chrissie won an advantage that helped her lose the game. Should there be such a ridiculous wrench to the game at Final Four?
I think we've talked about this.
It is true, though. It's interesting that Chrissie won something that really was a major loss.
No, but I was expecting there to be like a much cooler, like ninja fighter training scene for Devin preparing for that fire challenge. Like she won the knowledge that it was going to happen, which is actually now goes against my point of saying like they should prepare them. Like at least there was that. At least Chrissie got that advantage of being able to give that knowledge. Right. I thought it was really obvious foreshadowing when the flint broke.
Did you think Devin made a mistake in not training more?
Yes, right? Couldn't you see that by doing it, he was not as good at it than Ben? He wasn't holding it close enough.
But we've seen Devin throughout the season make fire actually quite a number of times, including in this episode when he made fire. I don't think the question was Devin's fire making skill, and I don't think practicing a bunch would have actually helped him. Like, if anything, it might have like gotten those particular muscles like kind of worn out. I mean, with that,
fire making muscles, Stephen.
Yeah, just like the small, like the flick. To get the
tendonitis.
I know you never made fire, but in order to like get to shave down the magnesium, and then to like flick the machete against the flint, it takes a lot of like really small rapid actions.
You know what? I think that's right. I don't think I made fire once my whole season. G.Autos.
You would have not. You would have been eliminated. I guess not. Maybe or not, or you would have won. Moira Swietkowski wants to know: did Chrissie know it was over when Ben won the fire challenge? They had to assume, right? I mean, I don't think they obviously wanted to fight it out, but.
Stephen, what I thought was weird was in my season, because there was a lot of parallels, right, with Ben and Ozzy. In my season, like it was so obvious.
Sophie, this is really bad, but I've got to get my power charger. I'll be right back. He's fill time. Take questions.
I'm gonna fill time. I'll tell a story. I wish I could see more questions. I don't feel like answering this one. No offense, Paige Williams. The question's good, but I'm just going to wait for Stephen. I'm just going to tell a story I was going to tell anyway. So in my season, I feel like everybody was like cheering Ozzy on. Every time he walked in with the immunity necklace, like literally there were probably claps or at least sighs of relief. And I didn't feel that with Ben. Like I didn't necessarily feel now Stephen would say something like, "Oh, that's because everybody hated you." Thanks, Stephen. And in my season, sorry, I'm doing a really bad job filling in for Stephen. I felt like nobody was really like rooting for Ben. In fact, when Chrissie came in with the idol, I feel like who was it? A couple people like kind of gave her a thumbs up or smiled at her. So it didn't feel like there was this overwhelming momentum from the jury to vote for Ben. Which was surprising given how much when they were on the island they saw him as a threat. Stephen's coming back, but I filled in well. And then Stephen would be something like, yeah, you filled in okay. Where's Tyson? I don't know what he's doing. I don't even know if this is on speakerphone. And Stephen's back.
God. This is the most under the Rob's gone and the whole thing falls
Rob's
apart.
Gonna kill you.
I know. I'm in trouble. All right. Faux pas wants to know, I could see a few people from the season being invited back. What ones would you think would be given the option? This is like faux pas says Lauren, Joe, Devin, Chrissie in that order. Who do you think? I agree. There's a lot of good potential returnees on this cast.
Devin's top of my list, no question.
Devin is definitely the top, certainly for a second chance season. Lauren, for sure, I want to see back. She was one of my favorites, of all time.
Wait, really? Can you tell me why? Like, I get the appeal, but
you don't want to talk badly again about Lauren. You're gonna get a.
What did she say in the jury section that was so funny? She had like a 2-word answer to something.
Like, that's enough of that or something.
Yeah.
Like she just like shut it down. Like, but that was it. She was just incredibly plain spoken. But she played the game super hard. You know, she was really no nonsense. She wasn't all about the big moves. You know, I remember like one great moment when, you know, Ben was off making his fake idol. Lauren was like, what's the point? You know, that is dumb, you know? And she just like, I would think you would kind of dig her because
I love her.
She was very strategic, but she was also, you know, she did not have any like patience for the BS.
She was also strategic in her own Lauren way without trying to be strategic in the like box checking, I want to be a Survivor superfan strategic kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would think like she was like you shutting down Albert. You're like, well, you know, your strategy is dumb. Like, let's just do the obvious thing here.
I finally have a legacy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Allie is another one who I'd really like. A lot of these guys from this cast. Cole, I would love to see them.
Really,
them bring
Cole?
back.
Yeah, Cole was funny. Again, Cole,
but I also thought
part of his personality that was so unique, right? He just looked like the surfer bro, but he was so terrible at so many things that it made him into a character unto himself.
But I
couldn't keep a secret, couldn't stop eating.
I thought Cole was better than he got credit for. I think a lot of his instincts were good, but he also had a lot of bad instincts that really counterbalance those good instincts. But I really feel like he's one of those ones who on a second chance could just kind of really step his game up in a big way. And I think, you know, maybe if he just like, you know, didn't work out so much beforehand, that might help him out too. Yeah. You know, a lot of really good characters on this cast, and JP too. I mean, he was there. He was not a good character. Derek wants to know: is this the new most controversial final vote? What was the old most controversial final vote?
I don't think this is anywhere in the realm of super controversial votes. I mean, to me, controversial votes are things like Michelle winning, Natalie winning, me winning. Like, to me, those are the ones that the fans are always like up in arms about because, like, the, you know, whatever their fan. The people they're in love with don't win. In my mind, this was like one of those seasons of like there were a couple of really great people in the final, and it was a close enough vote. And I don't think Chrissie got screwed. You could say, like, I felt like the jury decided to vote or to, you know, reward one thing over another, and Chrissie played a good game and was deserving, but just didn't come out quite on top.
Yeah,
I not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the controversy would just be, I think, from the idea that Ben was there at all. Although I you know, and from my perspective, like every contestant and certainly every winner benefits from twists in the game. They have to get lucky. They get a twist that helps them at the perfect time. They find a challenge that, you know, is perfectly suited for them just when their back is against the wall. You can't win Survivor without getting extraordinarily lucky, not just with the twists, not just with the advantages, but even with like,
how you explain it to yourself, Stephen.
Who you're up against. You know, like, let's say you're Sophie and you just get, you know, how do you don't even know how to play it, except that then there's coach, you know, and the coach comes along to carry you to the end. So you got to get lucky with every aspect of the show to win Survivor. You know, Ben got lucky with that twist, yes, but I don't think that takes away from his win.
So the next question is from Derek, and it says, Stephen and Sophie, is Chrissie hurt by a male dominant jury similar to Hannah last year? So I honestly don't want to answer this question because I believe that like being a woman in the world is a difficult thing and that you're constantly facing sexism in a way that nobody else is going to understand. And so I'm never going to say that like that is not something that plays into a 39-day game of Survivor. But I don't know. Unless you have an opinion, Stephen, like, I don't think it was a driving force.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do think, you know, I think we've talked about a lot how that mom character is so often considered, like, if a mom character gets to the end, they're so often considered to be, you know, like abrasive or whatever, you know, that a lot of these adjectives that, you know, are really frequently applied to very strategic older women. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say like who, you know, where specifically is that, you know, who's the person who's displaying that sexism in their vote? Like, you know, are we all just guided by socio-political forces that we don't even know about? Probably.
Thank you. If she lost the Dr. Mike, this would be a different conversation, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't, I mean, Ben played such a great game, and Chrissie still got good, you know, she still got votes. She got 2 votes, a lot more votes than I got.
How many did you get?
I got I don't remember the exact number right now. Less than 2. Jennifer Protect Dom wants to know, do you find the jury question formatting to be hard to follow? It seems like it used to be easier to understand who is asking a question, and now it's just jury members speaking over each other. Interesting. I think most people are in favor of the new format, but Jennifer is not. What do you think, Sophie?
Jennifer likes things in order, and we knew that about Jennifer going in, so I'm not surprised.
um, I think that one thing I like about, I mean, the organization and like the 3 like themes of like outwit, outplay, outlast is a little bit arbitrary, and I think like the attempt to structure it that way is sort of artificial, and it's obvious that it's artificial. Like the questions quickly transcend those boundaries, or the answers quickly transcend those boundaries, and I really like the interplay between the jury, and I think the jury did a much better job this year than last year. I think it was much more fluid.
Yeah, it was much more natural.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like I was surprised that the idols were part of the playing. I kind of assumed the playing to be just the challenges. I almost think it's a detriment to it for Probst to be trying to put everything in boxes. I almost think it would feel better if it was almost even more of a free for all. Sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Although, yeah, I guess some structure is good. I mean, I think they've nailed it. This is such a great format. I think they've really done a fantastic job with this. All right, you want to read the next question?
Sophie and Steven from Chris Mesfer. Should Ben be punished by fans for taking advantages of twists, idols that producers put into the game? He was the only person taking advantage of them and putting in the effort.
That's right.
I think no, exactly. I also think that Probst, like, did you notice? I think Probst was trying to address this a little bit in the reunion show where he said to Ben, like, tell everybody how hard it is. And I imagine that's because a little bit of this pushback of feeling like, oh, Ben found 3 idols in a row. Like, which producer handed him which ones? And I imagine like he probably did take hours to search. And I like to think at least that it took him hours to search.
That's the thing. I mean, you know, you on TV, it's like you see him walk into the forest, and then like you see a few quick cuts, and then he's picking up an idol. But you know that is a long time. And you know, I think that one that they showed today again, where like he walks in right after tribal, and then he walks out like just as dawn is breaking. Yeah. Like that's like 7 hours of walking through the forest. You know, not even knowing if an idol is there. You know, the forest at night is like not the best place to be. You know, you have no freaking clue what you're about to put your hand in. Like what, you know. I was really, really, really impressed. You know, the fact that he put in so much effort. You know, I
agree.
As you know,
I think the producers should just put online a 7-hour clip of Ben searching for an idol to stop this like accusations going forward.
That would actually be amazing. That's a really, really great idea. Yeah, if it exists, to put on. I mean, if that footage is still there, just to like show him, you know, losing his mind as he like wanders through the forest. The fact that he had the wherewithal after that to like look at the boat and even see anything, I'm amazed.
Was he truly lying down to sleep? That was incredible.
Yeah,
right?
or just like
lying down to sleep. I thought he was lying down to sleep next to the boat when he saw it.
Wow,
anyway.
That's insane. All right, Joe Daly.
I'm a believer.
Joe Daly wants to know, so with the final 4 twists, will the strong get voted out even earlier and those who suck at making fire get saved?
I mean, I think you talked about this earlier, Stephen. I think anybody who is a huge threat to a physical threat and people think are going to win, people are thinking about them before the final 4. And so people who get through that, and people like Ben who get through that, it's not like at the final 5, they're going to be like, oh my God, Ben, Ozzy, we got to get them out because they're going to win their way to the end. Like, I think it'd be hard pressed to think of the person who you're not worried is going to win the final 4 challenge, but you are worried is going to win the fire.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a really, really, really specific archetype, and although probably a lot more people are going to be making fire throughout the season now. You know what? That's one interesting, you know, maybe offshoot is that people are going to be very suspicious of who's making fire. Yeah. Like, oh, practicing for the final 4, huh?
You can't do anything good anymore. We have nice things.
Yeah, can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. I in Cambodia, I remember Jeremy would like insist on making the fire all the time, and like I wanted to make fire, but I didn't want to like step on his toes. But now
you and Ryan, that was Ryan's exact line.
Yeah, that's really funny. That's true. Yeah. Wow. But you know, but it's true though that you know, to a certain degree, like people have a lot of ego with these things. Not that Jeremy did, but like, you know, if someone like whoever was making fire on, you know, on Ryan's season if they were like, I'm the fire guy. You don't want to be the guy who's like, let me be the fire. But now moving forward, maybe that'll be a more contentious issue.
Well, Stephen, I mean, this is maybe a little bit of an offshoot, but I really relate to that because I feel like, and I think Ashley talked about it in her Ponderosa video last week. This is a big problem, I think, for women in challenges. And it was very obvious this season with Lauren, right? Who was like the pro softball player, and Ashley. Whereas I found when I was on my season that I felt like if I volunteered to step up for a challenge and said, I can do this, and I didn't do it well, I would be punished more than like a man who was just like did the challenge and then he didn't do it well. And it was like, oh, well, I guess the challenge was hard. Like, I do think that there is this place of like, I don't know, scrawny guys feeling like if I mess up the fire, it's going to be like, oh, the scrawny guy messed up the fire instead of like, oh, the fire just went out. And the same thing I think happens all the time for women in challenges, that it's a real risk to step up and be assertive because you're punished more when you do and you fail.
Well, every time I would make a fire, like all of the cameras would come over and it was like so much performance anxiety. So it was like, I mean, on both of my seasons, but actually first in Tocantins. So I just stopped even trying in Tocantins until I had to make one. And then I got pretty good at it until I got really bad at it again in Cambodia. But it's true that I think you're right that there's like an element of, the people who are just going to do it. Like, and maybe part of it is just that they're not self-conscious about it, so they're just doing it. Jeremy was just happened to be really good at making fire, and so there was no self-consciousness, and so there was no like weird thing happening.
Well, you would also have to actually break the stick first to make the fire. So there's the step one.
got a lot of zingers tonight, Sophie. A lot of zingers. Now I know what it's like for Rob. Just someone sitting there on the sidelines sniping. What else we got? What else we got? Any other questions?
I don't know what happened to the questions. I'm staring at everybody's faces. It's nice. It's gonna be the last time you remember people.
Well, so Rob's got. I think that's all for tonight. Sophie, any further thoughts about?
Is that really all? Man, I don't want this to be over.
It's late.
So much fun. Okay, I guess it is late. I'm on Central Time though. It's early for me. Okay.
Any further thoughts about the season? Any last parting words? We didn't really talk about how great Devin is, and certainly not enough.
I don't think we talked about it enough. Definitely not enough. Oh, I wanted to ask you, what did you think of the clean shaven look on him?
He was very, very handsome, with any type of facial hair. Yeah.
He looked taller too.
Yeah. I think it's like proportionality. I think they cast a lot of tall, just on TV. It's like hard to gauge like how tall people are.
Wait, can I actually ask one more question and then I'll let you go? I think I saw that somebody talked about this on Twitter, but it definitely seems like in the editing of the show, there's much more of this push towards like everybody has this story, partially because Jeff probably wants to win an Emmy, but like Chrissie's the mom and Ben's the Marine, and everybody has this like full story built out for them that I think is kind of a little unique. But I've also noticed that these stories are not just in the editing, but they seem to actually be playing a part more in the final tribal council. It's like you can't win in the end unless you have this big overarching story to tell about your family or your life. Like, do you think that's true, or do you think this really is just in the editing?
I think that the editors are doing a great job of showing the stories of the people who do really well. We also happen to have a number of contestants this season who had really compelling personal stories. I don't think they force it. We didn't hear a ton about like Troyzan's story last season. We didn't even hear a lot about Ryan's story. I think you have this example of a Marine who's like talking about working through his, traumatic issues from war through the show. That's compelling stuff. How do you not show that? And then you also, side by side have this mom who left her job to be here after she's been applying for 16 years. Again, like that's really an amazing story. And, I feel like they're just doing a good job of highlighting what's there. Has the criterion for winning changed?
That's what I wonder.
Maybe. I think maybe. And maybe it's partially because of this emphasis on big moves in the game. Maybe it's partially because you've seen, you had Jeremy who had this incredible story. You had Adam who had this incredible story. And now new contestants come into the game and are like, where's my hook? Yeah, exactly. Like, what's my narrative?
Like, could have Fabio or like even Devin, would he have struggled at the final 3 with just kind of, I'm a young guy who was good at the game. Like, that's it,
Yeah. I really think Devin did such an amazing job. And I think the way that he played up his surfer persona in order to disguise his strategic chops was like nothing I've ever seen before. Or Dom of Dom and Colin tweeted at me, like, isn't that kind of what JT did? And I definitely see the parallels between those two. JT played up his sort of like country boy persona, but JT never really hid how strategic he was from people. And I think Devin did a really good job of sort of like really playing dumb a lot, and kind of like masking his own guile with.
Well, I feel like often you watch the show and you're like, oh my God, what if this whole thing is fake? Like, what if Philip is actually like a mastermind? What if this person? And Devin is the first one to like be that. Like, if you watch his secret scenes, he like flat out says, I'm playing up the surfer thing, but like I actually had these people wrapped around my finger. And I feel like nobody has had so much self-awareness and has done this so intentionally, right? Like, did JT do it intentionally, or was he just like, he was both? And that,
Yeah, I think he was. He was doing it intentionally. But, he'd play up his aw shucks demeanor to hide strategic things, but it wasn't like in the same way that Devin did it. Like really, where it seemed like he had this persona, and yes, that was part of who he was, but it was also like he was really great at just like taking it to 11. Like JT never was like, well, y'all, let's talk about the cows. I mean, that although that is sort of who JT is. But that was a really terrible JT impression.
Yeah, that was good. Do it again.
I should not be. Yeah, this is why we need Rob on this podcast. His computer's plugged in. His impressions are on point. He's got it all going on. Well, this was great, Sophie. Thank you once again so much for being here. The last question I have for you from Alex Wilpon: did Probst troll us with the reveal of what happens in a tie vote last season?
Steven, you don't understand. I went through this whole season being like, but it's going to be a tie. Like in the back of my mind, the whole time, it's going to be a tie. Like literally all of my winner theories were centered around the idea that it must be a tie. And then I got convinced that Chrissie was the tiebreaker. And even tonight, to the last second, I was like, I don't know how this is a tie. Like Ryan must get one vote. And then Ryan got a vote. And I was like, oh my God, it is a tie. But who's voting for Chrissie? Like, I think I was trying to build it. I don't understand the motivation behind that at all. I wonder if there was like a chance that it was going to be a tie and that people changed their votes and that made them think about it, or if it was just a giant troll. But
yeah,
hats off to Probst.
I know. I think everyone in like the fandom was just assuming all season long that there was going to be some tie. I was like, well, it's got to be a tie between Ben and Devin, but like I was totally with you. I thought Ben and Devin were going to tie, and then Chrissie was going to be the tiebreaker.
And I also feel like I need to apologize to Jeff because I'm like, oh, he ruins everything. Like we finally get a tie, which is going to be like the most amazing part of the season, and I'm going to roll my eyes and say like, oh, I knew it was coming. So I'm sorry, Probst.
Yeah. Really great trolling by Jeff. Sophie, really great to have you here. You've got the Rob's got the final 5 exit interviews coming up. I guess today. Now that it's tomorrow. Now that it's Thursday, Rob's going to be doing exit interviews with the final 5. So we'll get to hear all about all the things that we've discussed and find out just how wrong we were about everything. Sophie, any parting thoughts?
Nothing. I'm excited for Ghost Island.
I know Ghost Island is really going to be fun. I'm really psyched for it.
I'm going to rewatch all the Pirates of the Caribbeans in preparation.
Okay, it seems like a waste of time, but just stop with the first one.
Okay, we're done. I think I'm gonna end this now.
All
okay,
right, bye.
This was great. Bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in all season long. It's wonderful to interact with you guys throughout the whole season. And Rob probably doesn't appreciate you the way I do, but I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who tunes in every week. All right, bye.